All right, we'll shut down D. Snyder and his friends there and wish everybody a good afternoon. It is officially noon here in Denver. Today is Wednesday, the 20th of November. I hope everybody is preparing for a safe, wonderful, and festive Thanksgiving with friends and family. This will be the last time that we come to you before the end of the year, so I'm flashing my holiday red. With me, and not dressed in holiday form, is my colleague Jack Schneider. Come on in and say hi to folks, Jack.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Jack's going to help me out, as always, with processing your questions as they come in. I do want you to feel free to send questions and comments as they occur to you via the chat, if you could. We'll take them as they come, or we'll pause as we move through the presentation. This is the Webolutions webinar series. We are here to talk about digital marketing trends to consider to make you successful in 2020. My name is Mike Hanbury. I'm Director of Business Development here at Webolutions. It's my pleasure and my privilege to be with you today. And hello out there to the University of Denver alumni and the small business attorneys and our clients and prospective clients who are joining us today. I'm so glad that you've chosen to spend your valuable time with us. And if I can figure out how to change a slide, we'll just move on forward with the presentation. There we go. I knew I'd figure it out eventually. I used to work in TV and live TV. And if you just keep hitting the button, eventually you get what you want. All right, so happy Thanksgiving, an early Thanksgiving, everybody. We are a little bit about Webolutions. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary of being in business. We have successfully kept the lights on and kept people employed and helped businesses and organizations succeed for 25 years, a big achievement for us. And how did we celebrate it? We came back to work today, so we high-fived and did a round of cheers, and we went right back to work. Because we just have so much to do. And so there's a picture here of some very serious people who work here. That is our team of experts, and when they're not acting goofball like that, it's a very hard-working, nose to the grindstone environment here. Everybody gets to really enjoy what we do, and our purpose is to empower passionate people to thrive. You're passionate about your business. That's why you've chosen to spend time with us today. It's our job to help you thrive. So if we can help you do anything, please let me know. One of the things we can certainly do for you that we always offer is a web-free website analysis. Here's the kind of stuff that we're going to look for. But mostly here, we're going to spend that time understanding what your goals are and how we might be able to help you achieve them, or at least give you some ideas about what's getting in your way and some things that you can do to achieve your goals as you move forward. So that's always our offer to you, and I hope you call me and contact me and take me advantage on that. Why would you do that? Who's this guy? Well, my name is Mike Hanbury, and I've been with this company since 2010, and I've been in marketing for a long time. I've been a video producer and a copywriter, and focused pretty much on the online strategy for the last 10 years or so, or more than that, and got some other certifications that I didn't list there and so forth. But before I was the business development guy here at Webolutions, I ran the online marketing department, and so a lot of this framework, a lot of the content you'll see comes from that. And Webolutions is a strategic marketing agency. We do build websites. We've built more than 2,000 over 25 years. We are Google partners and Google AdWords certified, and we do excel in search engine optimization and digital advertising, but there's so much more that we do and you kind of have to. You can't build a website unless you understand what strategy is behind it. We're probably going to get into some of that today. This will be the last time we come to you in this format until the end of the year, y'all. So please make plans to have a happy and wonderful holiday season. Hanukkah starts on the 22nd of December, and Kwanzaa's on the 26th, starts on the 26th. And so all those holidays are packed in there together. It ought to be a very active holiday season. I want to wish you all a very happy and safe one. And when you come back, make plans to join us for our webinar series, our monthly webinar series, all year. Next year, we're going to begin the final Wednesday in January with what to expect when creating an effective website. We got a team member of ours here who had a baby very recently, and a quick shout out to John Tarr and his wife Eileen and lovely baby Charlotte. who arrived earlier and just in time for me to win the baby pool. So happy, and y'all please make plans to join us in January. Let's rock and roll on trends to pay attention to and to monitor and to leverage in 2020. We're going to begin with website platforms. This is a question we get a lot about what the so we work primarily in WordPress. We actually have I'll talk about more of that. We work primarily in WordPress. WordPress is a content management system. Gone are the days when, what does a content management system mean? It basically means that you get to manage your content. Once upon a time, a website was this thing. It was a digital brochure. And that's all it was. When this company started in 1994, 90 days after there's been such a thing as a website, or the internet in general, is when this company started building websites out of a basement in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. If you needed to change on the website, you had to get in line behind or learn how to do hypertext markup language and build things in programmer language. And what WordPress and Joomla and Drupal and content management systems have done is bring that ability to the layman, right? So those of us who are not programmers or coders can manage the content on our own website. It also means that once you log in, you've got a library of images that you can upload and work with over here. You've got content over here that you can decide whether or not to make private or make public. And as you can see, the report on market share for CMS comes out annually. And so by the time, it ought to come out right about the time that we are getting back together in late January. Usually comes out pretty quick. And so these numbers are dated as of this point, but they are the most recent market data that we have on market share. And WordPress is powering more than a third of the internet, right? More than 1 million websites are using WordPress. WordPress started as a blogging platform. It has become much more. We always have 2 or 3 e-commerce sites in development that are WordPress WooCommerce websites. And so it's there are major companies, major businesses that are using WordPress as their website platform. So as you can see, it's got 60% of the content management system CMS market, and the CMS market is growing and in general, meaning that more and more websites are CMS websites. For a while there, about 10 years ago, when we first started using WordPress, we looked at Joomla, we looked at Drupal, and it appears that we made the right choice in which to focus. Drupal has pretty much found a niche in a couple of areas. It's a good developer platform. Joomla if any of you research that, you'll see that it's not quite as SEO friendly. It's more user friendly, but as a design tool, as scalable, as workability, all those things combined, WordPress wins. And one of the number of reasons that WordPress, if I give you a top 3, is why WordPress is expected to continue to hold its dominance and grow that percentage of market share. It's because of ease of use. It's because of its SEO friendliness, and it's a thing that builds upon itself. Because it's so large, and all these are open source platforms, there are lots and lots and lots of WordPress developers and WordPress designers. So from a company standpoint, it protects our clients, meaning that if we have employee churn, let's say that our designers, developers are in-house. It's a big part of our model. So if we lose someone, it becomes easier for us to go find someone who has the skill set and come in and hit the ground running with that, so that and it protects our clients in that same way. And also, when we build your website in WordPress, it frees you up. It's not proprietary. It's very easy for you to find other people who work in WordPress. So it's the most transferable. We're getting a question in, and it's about WordPress and security. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I think it's a great question, and your website needs to be secure. So let's go ahead and address this. WordPress, because it's the most popular, is also the most likely to be attacked. by hackers. And the most likely way that a hacker is going to succeed in attacking your website is through outdated software. So WordPress is software. All these things I'm listing here are software. WordPress is powered. One of the things that makes it more scalable and less expensive to design and develop and faster to launch is that it gets its functionality through things called plugins. Yep, a couple of you already had there. I could see it. I couldn't see it, but I know you did it. These plugins are pieces of software. One of the things that I did when I had my first WordPress site built before I joined Webolutions, this is back in 2009, is I logged on to write a blog post. I was having so much fun. I loved my WordPress website. And there was this big friendly button there that said, time to update your WordPress software. I thought that sounded like a great idea. So I clicked that button and I broke my website. That was it. It was all kinds of messed up. And I called my developer. He said, what did I do? He said, yeah, don't do that. And the reason for that is these pieces of software, all the plugins, have to be updated to work with the WordPress version of software. And there's a timing element of that, and you kind of have to be in the world to know how to do that. So there's a partnership that needs to work there. But that's the way that people get, is by not updating that software on the plugins. The next thing you know, your website's gone. It's upside down. The URL is redirected somewhere else, and you got to go. You got to recover it. That's going to be the case with any platform, though. And so my point behind bringing up all that software updates and the systems which we employ for every website that we host and maintain, it's only a risk if you don't have good systems backing it up, which is like everything else in your business. So I think that's a fair comment, but it has less to do with the platform and more to do with your systems. It can happen to any platform. It happens to WordPress because that's going to be the one that draws the most attention and has the biggest opportunity area from those who would do us harm. Here's another question coming in. How can I get my Weebly website on page 1? Just because Squarespace and Wix are listed here, and Weebly is not, because it hasn't cracked that the top 5 here, at least not as of January of last year, or December of 2018. Your Weebly website, your Wix website, your Squarespace website is probably not going to rank on page 1. Those are great platforms for quick, now, cheap. But as we'll talk about coming up in a little bit about search engine optimization and some of the things that are going on in the industry, if your goal for the website is to drive inbound leads, and if you believe that there's an opportunity to do that through placement on page 1, well then, first of all, we'll talk about data here coming up, and we would strongly recommend, our system is, to get the information first and learn if there is actual positive ROI available to you, return on investment available to you by doing that tactic before you start investing in a plan and spending time and tactics to it, for one thing. And you're going to want to work in a professional platform like Drupal, like Joomla, more to the point, WordPress. So that's a quick answer to that, okay? Very good. That's probably enough time on that slide. Let's move forward. Okay, now, I've talked up WordPress like it's the end-all, be-all. Let's talk about why it's not. Let's start with a good question came in about security. Here's where WordPress loses, is with, or the problems with WordPress. It stands to reason that Mike is comfortable talking about this because Webolutions has answers that meet all of these things, right? So I'll speak to all those things very briefly. WordPress is very theme-based. So especially when you're dealing, when you're cost-conscious and you're time-conscious, and those are the 2 most important factors for you to make the decision, you are probably going to end up with somebody who's going to build your website in a theme. There is a pre-designed theme. There are lots and lots of them, and the assumption behind the themes is you are in this industry, and so your website is like this, all right? You fit in this box. We really struggled with that 10 years ago when we adopted WordPress. There are all kinds of limitations. The client says, we want to do this. Well, the theme doesn't do that. We want to recommend this. theme doesn't support it. You have to make coding exceptions to the theme. You have to go add a child theme to the parent theme. And that is as rickety as it sounds, right? As soon as you start doing that, you're messing with the integrity of this thing that you're building. And it becomes increasingly untenable. So the limitations of themes are a double-edged sword, and the cure is worse than the disease. We created what we call our enhanced WordPress platform, which gives you all the usability benefits and makes the website more scalable and leaves us free to make any recommendations that we see fit, and leaves you free to dream about what your website ought to be and do. So there you go. We own the template. Okay, so we have a new client. His business is golf. This is a recent example. He's in the golf business, and he had us do some strategic and design his logo, and he said, I'm going to have my website designed by these guys because they're so much less expensive than you are. And he came back to us very quickly and said, well, actually, after I did the math, they weren't less expensive. And by the way, what really got me is they told me that they weren't in the business of building websites that they didn't own. This is important. If you want to own your website, one of the things that happens in WordPress is there's a template, right? So you get a parking space on our website, right? You can have your domain, you can have your content, but the files are ours is the model, right? It is not the model Webolutions works in. Anything that you commission us to do belongs to you. You paid for it the way you paid for your phone or anything else that you own. It's your property. You ought to have it. But there are template models out there, and WordPress is known for this, where you don't pay anything up front for the website. You pay a monthly fee for them to manage and host and maintain the website, and you never actually own the file. So watch out for that if you plan to own the website. And what happens then is you say, hey, I want to take my files and move it somewhere, and they say, you can't because we own them. So that's one of those things that gives is a bit stigmatic for WordPress. And finally, training. Because it's so easy to use, and more to the point, because not everybody who's in our industry sees it all the way through, when I got my first WordPress website, nobody trained me on it, right? But, I mean, and so it's out there. Your website does stuff. You had things installed. You don't really understand how to use it, right? I never would have broken my website if I'd been trained on, hey, here's a thing that you don't do, right? And it's one of the reasons that we always include training in the scope of when our project manager leads you through the process of keeping your project on time and on budget. We get to that point where all the home pages are approved, the content is populated, and the functionality testing is done, and we're going to launch this thing. Before we do that, we train you on it. We give you a custom printable user's guide, and our project manager who's led you through the process and who's helped you identify and get to this point trains you hands-on on how to do all the stuff that your website will do. And of course, we've got clients who never touch it again and have us do everything, and that's fine too. All right. But this is where the three, in addition to that very valid security comment, this is where the onions are in the ointment and how they ought to be addressed by your partner. What to expect coming up this year in terms of website development. What's development is custom website development first, and all that stuff about themes, all that stuff I fit in the box, all that template stuff. For businesses that have expectations of from their website, I want this to grow my business, I want it to bring me new leads, I want it to. The trend is going to be for custom website development. All right. There's nobody like you. You don't fit into a box. If you think that way, stop. There's a lot, much higher ceiling for you. AI, artificial intelligence. What is that in terms of website? AI is probably more along the higher end of businesses and organizations. Still probably employable mostly in this context for larger, but it'll make its way down the ladder and be more approachable, and the barriers to entry will drop very quickly with this. And the way AI is working in websites is it is analyzing user behavior. So right now, if you've got Google Analytics installed in your website and you've got it installed correctly, then you can go onto the website periodically and say, okay, I've got enough traffic to where I have statistically significant data, and I can look at it and see how people are arriving at my website, what pages they're entering. I know where my conversion page is. I know the journey I want them, I believe they want to follow, and how well is my website channeling them through that journey. Where are they dropping off? And we can look at that and make tests, run, and make adjustments to improve your conversion rate, improve your engagement on site. AI is going to do that by itself, right? And it's going to do that, and we'll talk about digital advertising later. Stay tuned. Don't leave me, all right, before we get there, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now at the smaller business and organizational level that is going to impact things rather rapidly in that area. Google's already flipped the switch for some of those things. But artificial intelligence is basically rapid firing, taking all this data and it's interpreting it for you, and it's making the changes for you. It can run tests. It can do all of these things. And yes, it is new technology, and there is risk involved with new technology. No two ways about that. Absolutely. And so you probably still want to have some humans checking what the AI is telling you, and to see if the data that it's interpreting is the right data, and if it's interpreting in ways that are consistent with your goals and your brand experience. Flexible design elements. What does he mean by that? Okay, so one of the things that we're doing these days in WordPress is, for example, is creating content areas, which are very easy in your admin area to drag and drop and move up and down and change, you know. So the way that your website is designed is less and less around static elements, and that bridges right off of AI, the ability that it has to run these tests and do these things. But your website's not static. Your website's dynamic. You can serve up different versions of it to this many people or this many people, or this audience to that audience. And the idea is to make it a better experience for your user. The result of that is better conversion rates, more purchases on your website, more subscriptions, that kind of thing. Whatever your action is that you need people to take. Motion, video, of course, that's not news. That video is going to be very important to continuing going forward. But animation. Motion graphics are on websites. We're using 3D renderings on websites anymore, and I think it's also interesting to note where motion is disappearing. So and trending out of web design. So for a while there, and you still see this. So a standard website has a hero image. You land and you see a big picture, and it probably says something that appeals, that tells you the good ones. Say, you're the right. This is what we do, right? This is who we are, and if this is what you're looking for, you're in the right place. And it conveys that immediately, and in a few words. And then if you sit there, it shifts, and you get another picture. And if you sit there for a few seconds, it shifts and get another picture. Well, ever since these were invented, that kind of went out the window, okay? So we still see websites using that, and but the way we consume websites is like this, right? We're going to sit there, we're going to move, and we do that in our desktop as well. And so, first of all, and it's not depending on how you calculate the amount of traffic or where the consumption, anywhere between 50 to 80% of it comes through your phone, and the vast majority of the first impression of your website is done on mobile. So if you're a business like ours and you have a consultative deal, and if your estimates and your prices have commas in them, yeah, people are probably going to make that decision when they're sitting at a desk or and have two hands on a laptop or on a desktop. That's when they're going to give that information right to you and say, okay, I'm ready to talk to you. But the first impression, by and large, comes to that mobile, and that shifting gallery does not provide a good user experience on mobile, is how I'll truncate that. So motion is changing. in the way that it uses. Parallax windows are another example of motion. What's a parallax window? You've all seen websites, you've all visited websites where you start at the top and you're scrolling down, and then it's like you get to a part where, oh, there's this window of people in it or of something in it. And if I scroll down, there's that part, and I scrolled up, there's this part, and the content keeps going. I hope that's clear. That's what a parallax window is. One, maybe two of those on your website, no more than one per page is kind of the deal. You want to pick and choose selectively how you use that, but it's a very popular design element because it's pretty cool. And it is very effective in conveying and getting your content over imagery. Can't stress the importance of imagery enough in the impact that it has for your user. They need to see in messaging that's a huge part of messaging. The people decide whether or not they like your website within 0.05 seconds because of the way the brain works. And 61% of that decision, without you knowing it at all, is made on color and imagery alone, like that, all right? So we have to have images that represent us well. And how do they represent us well? You know what they do? They show the transformation. Not here's what we do, but here's the transformation of what happens when you make us a part of your life, okay? And we'll have some webinars next year when we talk about that. We'll probably hit that again in January, but enough about that for now. Integrations, third-party integrations. So you have third-party systems. You might have a contact relationship management, a CRM system. You have an e-commerce website for sure, has a payment gateway, and that kind of stuff. And so all of those integrations have to be scoped and developed within the website. And as the technology grows and expands, the barriers to integration drop. So there will be more and more integrations we'll be able to do directly with the website. Predictive analytics. So right now, I have software I have code on my website here at Webolutions that even if you visited my website, and even if you haven't told me that you're there, I know that someone from your company has been there. And I can also see what the rest of your search activity is. Not exactly what it is, but how it's trending. All right, I've got software that comes and tells me this company has made this type of, is actively shopping for a website partner, is actively shopping for a digital advertising partner, that kind of thing. This really has zero application that I can find for a B2C, a business-to-consumer business, but every business-to-business salesperson ought to want to know this information, and so should a marketing department. So you're going to see that become increasingly popular over the course of the next 12, 24, 36 months. And finally, a quick conversation, if we could, about ADA compliance, Americans with Disabilities Act. This is going to be a full-blown trend, and it's one of these things which people are going to catch up because we as American business people did not pay attention. Well, we just didn't prioritize ADA compliance. The internet has been classified as a public utility. There is a law on the books called the Americans with Disabilities Act that says all public utilities must be equally accessible to everyone, regardless of limitation, physical limitation, right? For example, so blind people use the internet, and your website is supposed to be equally consumable for them. And why are we talking about this now? Because the lawyers figured this out. And they also figured out there are financial institutions which are heavily regulated, and people whose websites are not ADA compliant. And they started on the East Coast, and they're working their way west, and they're in the financial industry, and they've moved into healthcare, and then they're going into hospitality, and you can kind of do so here are high profit margin industries with big, deep pockets that they decided to go after. And so if you're a small business that's only doing a couple, $3 million a year, yeah, it's going to be a while before this becomes a concern, in all probability, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm not advising you as far as that is concerned, but I am telling you that as your website partner, we have a fiduciary responsibility to tell you that your website should be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I should tell you that it's not a one-time deal. Every time you add a piece of content to your website, it needs to be checked against ADA. And so we're happy to have that conversation and go deeper into it. But that is a trend that can keep you out of hot water. And y'all, 14% of the American population is classified as being protected by the ADA. So that's 14% of people that if your website's not optimized for, you're telling them to go away. That they probably got money, and it's probably a great way to differentiate yourself from those in your industry who do not care enough to think about the experience that they're having. All right. Okay, we got some questions here and there before we totally blast off from our website discussion. I'll answer a couple of questions. This is a great question. It's asked in the right way. What happened, past tense, to MegaMenus? So there used to be a thing we used to design a lot of websites, right, called MegaMenus. If I've got all kinds of different areas into which I go, right, I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I got I got a lot of information to convey, then I can have a MegaMenu. And a MegaMenu, just from a user experience, says I hover or I click here, and it opens up this other menu, and maybe I hover and I click here, and it may open up another one. And I can go as deep, and it's kind of like, I don't know, your file structure in SharePoint or in Outlook, right? Go deeper and deeper and deeper into these things. And that's how MegaMenus organize content. What killed MegaMenus, past tense, was mobile. They don't work for the mobile experience. And really, from a messaging standpoint, it's really born of an inside-out look of how we ought to approach website content. We ought to first understand, it's basically of a mindset of, we need to push this information out there. We need to tell people this. You need to understand this about us. And your user experience is maximized, your conversion rate is optimized when you take the opposite approach to that and say, who is our customer? How does our visitor, or the visitor that we want to appeal to, how do they arrive on our website? What's their mindset? What do they need from us? How are they going to process information? How are they going to, what's the journey that they are going to want to go on? And then we stack our information and our user experience out to meet that. And MegaMenus really, especially anymore, with those things that we talked about, like the flexible design elements, the content areas, a way you can stack information. They've kind of gone the way of the dodo, both in terms of how they don't fit with technology and with what we know now about how the brain processes information and how we ought to be working to appeal. How we're working to appeal to our target personas. One more question before we move on. This is a great one. How do I know if my website is ADA compliant? We use a service called SiteImprove. We are a SiteImprove partner, but there are tools out there, and SiteImprove is not the only one. There are others that you can run a test on, and it'll come back and it'll tell you, here's where your website is not ADA compliant. It's going to tell you, you have this image that has no description. And so actually a lot of these things will help you with your website content and your search engine optimization and that kind of thing in general. So there's always just added benefits to taking other people into account, or so I'm learning. But there are tools that tell you, and as I mentioned, it's not a one-time deal. If you're going to build a website, it should be part of the consideration of the upfront scope. And then on an ongoing basis. And if you're in the financial world or in the healthcare world or in hospitality, it's a longer conversation than just passing it off. But periodically you need to run these tests against the tool so that it can tell you, well, you started here and now you're here. Now you added a piece of content, and here's the degree to which and how you can plug in any gaps that you have. Thanks for those questions. They were great. We're going to move on to digital and mobile marketing, Google and digital marketing updates. We split this up, so I'm going to do SEO and then talk about digital advertising. And originally, Jack and I were, back in the day, it seems like it was a month ago, when we were putting this calendar together, and what we're going to talk about these different months and for our webinar content. This was going to be all about voice search. Voice search has been coming around that much. And so it's definitely there here. And the first thing we missed here is bidirectional encoder representations from transformers, or BERT for short. Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, don't you? We'll just move on to the next thing. Now, so what BERT is, that mouthful, it's a major Google algorithm change. And it's a very good one. It's the biggest one since circa 2012, when Google instituted Panda and Penguin and flipped that switch and did everything that it should have done with links, and made it less about quantity of links and how many worthless links can you create back to your website, more about quality links. It made the internet operate more like the real world, and that's what this does. BERT is content-oriented, and it dovetails very nicely with voice search because that's kind of why it's being invented. So it delivers more contextual results semantically for what you want. I think the best metaphor or analogy or example would be the right word that I read in all the articles that I read about this was where my mom lives in Texas. There's a lot of bovine population. Okay, there's a lot of cows, and my mom lives in the middle of nowhere, and there's more cows than there are people. So if you say cow, it's very clear what you're talking about. However, I've got friends who live in New England, and when they talk about cows, they're talking about sea bass. They're going fishing. But until recently, even if you were smack dab in ground zero of sea bass country, and you did a Google search for cow fishing, what Google gave you in return is stuff about bovinity. It gave you information about the cow, and what comes from the cow, and how cows are farmed. Zero about fishing. And now, if you're in that part of the country and you do a Google search about cow fishing, voice or otherwise, it will deliver you searches about cows. I'll give you a little thing up here that says, did you mean this kind of cow? So it's getting better and better able to decipher the nuance of what you were talking about, right? Which is important, and we're doing voice search optimization. We're building websites around it anymore because we speak to our assistants, our Amazon Echoes, our Google Homes, our it's going to fire up, I messed up, our Siris and our Bixbys and so forth in very different ways than we type, all right? We type in staccato. We ask full sentences conversationally to our voice assistants. So it is a different type of optimization for that, and so that's why I stack them up like that. Content, what's happening with content, getting more and more important, not just for search engine optimization, but for conversion, to explain who you are and demonstrate your leadership, your ownership of your thought leadership, your expertise, your subject matter expertise in your area. You can expect content to be a much bigger component of website budgets and of marketing budgets in 2020, both online and off. Pillar content. Okay, what is pillar content? Anybody who has been geeky enough to follow this kind of stuff for the past several years has heard about flagship content and cornerstone content, and pillar content is really the next evolution of that. The search engine optimization game is getting more saturated. Okay, it's getting increasingly. The good part about this is that we're going to shake out a lot of people at the lower end of the marketplace in the SEO world. Some people who don't belong there and shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and they're just going to go away. This is going to be a great year for that. But developing pillar content. So you've certainly got content on your website that directs people, that funnels people to a direct conclusion. You want to talk to us about this thing, and your pillar content is more authoritative. It demonstrates thought leadership. It tells your take on these things, and it demonstrates your knowledge of that. So, but it's pillar content. It's central to your brand and to your expertise is the high level on that. And by the way, pillar content, longer posts. Once upon a time, and back when, 2012, 13, 14, when I was teaching advanced search marketing at a grassroots level, Jerry Hello, we were talking about there was a point at which the algorithm checked out. It read about the first, I forget what it was, but the first 300 words were the most valuable, and if you're running for SEO, you pretty much could write a 300-word blog post. The funny thing about that is, it's true what Mark Twain said, if I'd had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. But you could check out earlier and have shorter posts. The algorithm is spending more time on the page. And so if you give it, this is the way it ought to be, if you give it more quality content, it will spend more time going through and indexing that content and giving you full credit for that content. And so better, longer, more authoritative posts, pillar content, for example, are gaining popularity because they are producing results. That's what's ranking for longer tail terms, which are the highest converting. Directories. So increasingly, if you do a Google search, this will be interesting to watch because it doesn't really make sense for Google's model. Google's the directory, right? And so, but increasingly, you're seeing Yelp, you're seeing Health Grades, you're seeing a number of these directories, which are huge websites, and that's why scoring for these positions. And so, you know, some of the success stories that I'll show in the sales presentations is, well, yeah, it's directory, 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 and then there's our client, the company. So if you Googled this and you want to then do a secondary search on another directory and go in there and see what this directory has said, you can. But if you want to talk directly to a company, we're the only one who shows up there, you know, so you can compete with directories, but it is making it more difficult, more competitive to achieve those rankings when Google is increasingly awarding that real estate to these larger directories. And it also means that you probably want to go see if it makes sense for you to have a listing on those directories. Some are free, some are paid, some are better than others, but it's probably worth checking out to see if you ought to have an optimized listing on those directories. And finally, the final thing I'll talk about here is, I'm watching the clock, is paid search ad placement. If you look at if you've followed this and you've watched where this stuff goes for a while, once upon a time, Google tucked its ads over here, and now increasingly, right, it is taking up more and more real estate at the top of the page, above the fold, as we used to say in print, for their ads. And there used to be 3, well now there's 4. And then you got the local results. What's the top of local results? More paid advertising. And then at the bottom of the page, there's 2 or 3 more paid advertisements for a lot of searches. And so the amount of real estate is available for organic results is shrinking, or at least perceptibly so, and the clutter that surrounds it and is increasing. So so which puts a lot more pressure on how your page is constructed, how the metadata is entered, and how it appeals to the eyeball and generates a click-through from the web visitor. So all of those things are impacting SEO. All right, I'm going to hustle through this slide, but I do want to talk about some things here. Digital advertising developments and trends. All right, and listening is one. I mentioned those. And so just a second ago, when I said the name of the voice assistant that I've got installed on my phone started lighting up because it thinks that I want to talk to it. They are constantly listening to us. And most, if not all of us on here if we haven't engineered this, we've experienced it, where we've had a conversation with our significant other, with a friend or whatever, and then we start seeing advertisements. That happen to you, Jack? Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the time. So and it's a little bit creepy, but if you're a marketer, you kind of have to look at this, right? People are talking about it. Well, you said you needed it here. You know, I can take care of this right now because I've got it. So we are listening, and the automated reaction to it and the targeting based thereupon is going to be a trend that picks up again in 2020. Retargeting. Retargeting, or also called remarketing, is when you visit a website and then that website follows you around with display advertisements. Hey, you said you need shoes. You didn't buy shoes. Don't you need shoes? Well, when you need shoes, we're here. Here's another ad. Here's another ad. Here's another ad. And it's become a bit funny that we do that. And the annoying part happens when you already bought the shoes and they're still following you around. You know, you bought 1 pair of sneakers, don't you need another pair of sneakers? Why not 2 pairs of sneakers? You know, but the way that you do that and retargeting, y'all, you got to decide now to put the pixel on your website, because retargeting only fires off once you've collected enough data. It doesn't go on a one-to-one. Somebody visited, now I go. You have to prove to Google that your website's getting visited by people before it'll fire off your retargeting campaign. So we work with people on that. Native advertising is an example. That's what the graphic is here on the right. So what native advertising means is it looks like it's supposed to be there. It looks like it's in line with everything else. You've got websites which have a very cleanly defined area over here, right? Ad choices, things running in this box. This is where the commercials go. Native advertising goes right in line. This screenshot is right off of my phone with a couple things cropped out to make it as to get rid of the controversial stuff that I didn't want to deal with. Can you find a sponsored ad? Yes, you can, because it's labeled sponsored, but at a glance, you're going through on your phone, that sponsored ad there at the bottom, number 4 spot, looks the same and presents itself the same as the Washington Post, the things from the Atlanta Sentinel, the article from the Wall Street Journal, and then there's whatever smart asset is. That is advertising to you. Native advertising is and the metrics on you're going to want to watch this before you decide to make an investment in this, because it gets lots of impressions. But you got to be really good at placement and at calls to action and at relevance to drive the click-throughs. And then once you've driven the click, you've paid for the impression. Now you've driven a click. You got to have an effective conversion. So you got to analyze that all the way through before you decide to do any of this, really. Contextual advertising. We're getting more and more targeted. So, you know, it is a lot less fire hose, a lot less shotgun, a lot more rifle to advertise. And contextual advertising is a lot less intense than some of the stuff we've talked about. You said you need this. You will run my website. Contextual advertising means, look, you're on this website. You've done these searches in this area. So I'm going to start showing you advertisements that are about these things that are in that area, that solve that problem. There are solutions, that are products, there are services around that you're surfacing. Chatbots, very quickly on this. The chatbots are an AI application. Part of the, should we have chat on the website? Everyone wants to chat on the website. What we encourage people to think through is, let's say I go to your website and the chat window pops up and I engage it and I start asking questions. Now, a lot of us, I'm one of them, have had an experience where we engage that and then we don't get very good answers. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Or here's the boilerplate response. And the boilerplate response doesn't really answer my question. So what we've done is, in that case, okay, we've given a feature, and then we haven't backed it up, and that makes for a poor user experience. So you paid money to deliver a poor user experience and harm your metrics, and create a bad brand experience for you. Chatbots are designed, I'm not saying they're doing this yet, but they're designed to mitigate that. So a chatbot, and there's a lot of front work that has to go into that, a chatbot has a database of information over here, and it is able to take the context of your question, in theory, and go get this information from its database over here and give you your answer. Again, that's how it's designed to work. It's how it works in theory. Let's let the big guys beta test this and perfect it before we start adding it onto our small business websites, okay? Ephemeral content. Okay, so ephemeral content comes and goes. The easy way to talk about this is, you know, like a Facebook story that's going to go away real quick. Advertisements are going to be like that. It gets used for like limited time. This is only available for another 5, 4, 3, 2. Do you feel the sense of urgency? Ephemeral content is going to get used on social media quite a bit and in display to take advantage of the FOMO, the fear of missing out. You got to go now. If you use ephemeral content, my advice is to make it a very compelling offer. A very compelling offer. Mobile, you're going to see more and more mobile because of the amount of traffic that is on mobile. The interruptive advertising and in-app advertising, meaning advertising that happens within the app. Think product placement. And my wife and my daughter are watching a series, I think it's on Netflix right now, called What If. There's an iPhone in every shot, okay? I mean, everybody's always on their iPhone. And it's a world in which nobody has an Android phone. So there's some serious sponsorship going on there, right? There's some really product placement there, and that's what in-app advertising is. You can see these kind of product placements that are very soft, but get put in there. Interrupted advertising is the kind of thing like where I'm playing Words with Friends. I'm playing the free version, and I can't go play, I finished my move with Jack. I can't go play with Amy until I watch this ad, right? So interrupted advertising, for sure. Augmented reality. The easy way to talk about this is with furniture. We give you a fake room, and here's our sofa, our sectional, and you can go play around and move these pieces and see how this is going to fit in your room. From a B2B aspect, you do this, this is done with high-end applications, and this is happening now. If you're designing a restaurant, if you want to design an office space, and that's pretty much where augmented reality has been. It'll be very interesting to see where it goes. Remember, Amazon was just books. Now it's everything. So augmented reality has a lot of potential to develop, and just because I don't see what it's going doesn't mean it's not going wherever it's going to be. Direct purchase. What's this? Okay. So right now, the main, the general way that we design conversion funnels is I run an ad, I click an ad, I get taken to a product page or a landing page, and that's where I'm supposed to convert. Direct purchase lets me buy the product right there or submit the form right there. It's in line in my Facebook feed, or it's in line in my LinkedIn feed, for example, or it's an ad that I can just click and expand and convert right there without having to go that extra step. It brings it all in line, and it's a direct purchase straight in. And then AI within digital advertising. And what I wanted to mention about this, check the time, thank you. What I wanted to mention about artificial intelligence here with regard to digital advertising, and this is already starting to happen, so this is going to pick up speed here over the next several months and definitely throughout 2020. When we get back together for this webinar at the end of November in 2020 and talk about 2021, this is going to be one of those things that has already run the curve. So when you're a small business, you're a solopreneur, and you have run, you tried an AdWords campaign, right? You set up an AdWords account, you did something, you gave Google your credit card number, and they started running these ads, and you got busy, and it turns out, and you don't have to be a small business owner, right? I've been this guy. And we talk to marketing managers all the time who got tasked with or who decided to run an AdWords campaign, and they were going to manage it, and then it never became front burner again. It sits there. I know I got it. I can't quite hack through all the stuff to get to it to where I can do a good job of focusing on it. And then once I get there, well, unless I'm Google AdWords certified, there's a knowledge gap that I can't quite bridge, and I'm not sure what I'm doing. And what Google is doing now, and they're forcing this upon us, is they're putting an AI into our Google accounts. So if you're not going to optimize that, I'm going to optimize it for you, okay? I'm going to drive your impressions. I'm going to drive your clicks. And then the role then for somebody like a Webolutions, right, who sets this setup, it changes a bit. So some of the responsibility comes off with us. But, you know, just looking at the way that these algorithms process information, especially with nuance and the fact that we are humans and we don't always say what we mean or mean what we say, we make mistakes. The AI is never going to be built to handle that perfectly, and so you'll need to go check and see if those things are, if it's doing right, and if it is optimal. At the very least, you're going to want to check it and see those things. And I guarantee 100%. That those advertising campaigns which are left to automation, they're going to need some human intervention and some human guidance for sure. And to Google's credit, they do a great job of analyzing and acting on the data that they receive. But so it'll be a real shift in digital advertising. Google's doing it because they need you to get positive return on your investment, just like us. Oh, and finally, pop-up ads. Watch for this. This is good news. Watch for this to be a negative trend, okay? So for years and years, we've said that, the data shows that everybody hates pop-up ads, and the data shows that they work. Well, a deeper dive into that data shows that they do get you the impressions, and they will drive lots of clicks, but they make people hate you. They say, this is, oh, that's what your brand is about? Is, interrupt, I said, it's this interruptive stuff that jars me, and everybody hates them. And so they're not going to go all the way away, but you don't have to use them. And I think you'll see that the long-term data analysis shows that if we use the pop-ups, we got the initial impression, and we got the initial click-through, and then those people never came back because they didn't like the way we treated them the first time. For a long time, we've said, as a consumer, I hate those things, but as a marketer, we have to do them. Well, good news. As a marketer, you don't have to do them, right? Okay. Very good. We're going to move, pushing up against time. I apologize. I do want to talk about some broader trends that didn't fit into any of those categories. Here's what we're seeing is that digital advertising, social media content, and strategies, search engine optimization is being used in the war for talent, which is full on right now, for sure. The employee recruitment and retention and engagement. The stuff I've given you over here to the right is employee engagement. I had a conversation today with one of our newer clients. It's a factory setting, and he talks about, we talked about employee engagement and getting people engaged. He said, yeah, that's going to be a real culture change here. We start doing this because there's a good chunk of these people who come in, do their jobs, and want to clock out and just want to spend, from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 here, and they take their lunch at this point, they get their smoke break at 10, their smoke break at 2, and that's what they think work is. And I said, don't you think that a majority of those people, when they go out to their smoke break, are complaining about how the job could be done better, so they've already got ideas about how you could be improving the efficiencies of your processes and your systems, and they're just not telling you because they're not engaged? This is the driver for most of the inefficiencies and the operational losses that we take as businesses in the world, in America. And most of our employees are not actively engaged. They don't feel empowered. And so one of the ways that businesses are combating that is through their digital marketing, through their content generation, and making their employee and their prospective employee one of their target personas to which they want to appeal. That ties into the mission, the purpose, the mission, the values. You'll see that more and more coming out in websites, in the messaging, because Simon Sinek, right? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I agree with that. We'll say here that people choose to do business with people whom they share values, right? Because what you do, I can go get that anywhere. Data. You can tell I'm pushing through here. Data, not in terms of more data, but the right data. In our content plan for next year, we did it this year, and it's about how to pick the right data, how to choose the right data that's meaningful to you. And the secret on that is you start with your business strategic goals, the things that you've identified that you have to achieve in order to achieve your strategic goals as a business, and you back out of that and you say, what are the key performance indicators, what are the levers that digital advertising, that SEO, and your website, et cetera, can flip to support those goals, and you track that performance against that end goal. That's what data, that's how you choose what data to pick. CRM, we always mention this, y'all. CRM adoption, contact relationship management systems, and I'll go to the next standpoint, marketing automation, task automation is right now at the small business level. There are systems, we resell them, that start at $79 per month with a license fee that are full-blown, sophisticated, perfectly usable contact relationship management systems. If you are paying more than that, if you are tracking your stuff on a sticky notes or on a whiteboard or an Excel spreadsheet, if you are downloading databases and then uploading them into a Constant Contact or a MailChimp, stop it. There are better systems that will save you time, save you money. We offer, I want you all to come request this from us, an ebook, 25 things every small business should automate. Get this from us, okay? And even if you have a small business, get it anyway. Because if you look through this thing, you'll know the 25 things, you'll see 23 things at least that you're doing right now that are occupying your time and that are costing you a lot. Costing you a lot of time. You add that up, get a system, and have these tasks be automated. All right, so come get that from us. Domestic offshoring was a neat experiment, and it turns out that we're more efficient when we do business with people who share our culture and our language. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Marketing and sales coming together. There's at the marketing and sales at the tops of organizations. You're seeing less and less of a chief revenue officer and a chief marketing officer and some person who is overseeing all of that to ensure that those two things are aligned. And an integrated approach, less one-off, this tactic, let's try this tactic, and more of an innovative approach. This is our effective marketing hierarchy. It represents the integrated approach that Webolutions brings to the table. I want to remind y'all that we offer a free website analysis. Please take advantage of it. Join us again in January when we talk about what to expect when you are creating an effective website. Please join us for that. And y'all have a very wonderful holiday season. And you know, take our we empower passionate people to thrive. Finish the year passionately, finish it strong. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Mike Hanbury, Director of Business Development at Webolutions. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, y'all.